We get this truck unloaded, get ready for the day. There's always something to get at the store. If you think that you're just gonna sit back and manage, you're in for a rude mistaken. Play some Lego. Your Lego skills and your Tetris skills have to be on point to be a restaurant owner. So I had to got a text while doing a payroll that we needed some stuff that the truck forgot. So I had to run to Costco and Restaurant Depot to pick up a couple of little odds and ends to get us through the weekend. It's always something that we might have missed. And we got ribs we prepped for today and tomorrow, or a little bit. Okay, all right, cool. All right, let's get a brisket trim in. Get this all set up. Brisket's one of our #1 favorites here at the Trapp. Something I do very well. So we got a nice good cut of beef. We use a prime brisket, and the difference between prime and choice is definitely the grade of beef, but what I like about prime, it has more marbling, it has more fat. So, you know, choice is a little bit, it could be on the drier side. So this is more forgiving with the fat cap. And the way you could tell, it's usually USDA prime, so it's all stamped. If this wasn't prime, it would say choice, or Angus is not really a choice, but it's a different type of beef. But I feel the only difference is the different grades as far as Angus and free range. But Wagyu is definitely one of the best grades that there is. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of trimming off the fat, the fattier part of the brisket. And what I want to do with that is the stuff that's not going to render down and the stuff that's not going to take on the rub, you want to kind of get that out the way. The brisket is made up of 2 parts. So you have your the flat, which is your leaner part of the brisket. So if you come into the Trapp House, the ladies will ask you, hey, what cut do you want? Do you want lean or fatty? And a lot of people will say lean, because not knowing what the fatty part is, thinking that you're just going to get a glob of fat. Well, the fatty part is actually the point. And I'm going to show you what the point is here in a minute, but it's just more the marbling. And what I mean by marbling is, see, I'll come underneath this silver skin with my knife and kind of peel back a little bit of fat, but these little lines indicate the fat or the marbling that I'm referring to. So if you look at the brisket whole, you have 2 parts, the flat and the point, and it all separates right here from this fat cap. So if you follow this fat cap all the way down, you could split this whole brisket. It's actually a 2-for-1 if you want, kind of say. So you just kind of follow this fat cap all the way down. And now you kind of have your flat and your point. And this is a lot of fat on the point here that will not render off. And your point is used for if somebody wanted a more juicier or moister part of the brisket, this is where it's going to come from, or this is where it's going to cut from. So you want to remember that when you're ordering at the table, you want the fattier part of the brisket. It's the more flavorful one. Also, your burnt ends is coming from this section as well. And your burnt ends, it doesn't mean that you're getting a burnt piece of meat. What it means is the burnt part, what they're referring to, it looks burnt, but it's actually the bark. it's the seasoning that adhered to the meat and formed a crust during the cook. So you don't have to be scared when somebody asks you, would you like burnt ends, and you think you're going to get a burnt piece of product. That's not the case. But you see this cap, this fat, it's real thick, it's hard. That will not render out during its cook. So I'm just getting that trimmed down, because we do serve burnt ends. We serve two different styles of burnt ends. We have the brisket, which is beef, and then we have pork belly, which is pork. All right, so that's kind of nice and trimmed out for burnt ends. And then I'm gonna work on this flat. What you want to do with the flat is, again, take off the big thick pieces of fat. It also allows you, when you trim the sides, it also allows you to kind of see through. So you see that big fat section right here? That's all fat. The meat starts right here. So when I trim that, I was able to see where I want to trim. And what you want to do is kind of just trim those bigger sections down. You want to leave like about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of fat on there that will help through the cook. But you want to kind of get it to where everything is the same level. And what I mean by that is you want to get it to where the whole brisket is even and not sticking up, so it'll get more of an even cook. So this is kind of my brisket right now, and this is about how we trim it up at the Trapp House. But you see how right here you'll have more of a hump, so this will cook a lot quicker than this section and this section. So what I want to do is still work on some of this fat cap right here. Get that up out of here. There we go. So now, show you. Now it's nice and even. That lump is gone. So it's pretty even to where everything will cook consistently. I got my favorite award-winning rub. My rub actually came in 19th rub in the planet, the best rub in the planet, and that's from the American Royal. American Royal is definitely one of the more prestigious barbecue associations. It's where all of the big boys go out and play and compete. This year, 2020, COVID, kind of stopped the Royal from happening, because there's probably like about 16 different barbecue teams that's out there competing. And I have got my name called out of these 600 teams that compete worldwide out there in the Royal. People come from Finland, Sweden, all over the world to come and compete at the Royal. And so my rub was called out this year because they only did the rub category this year. Came in top 20 in the planet. So I was very thrilled with all of the different barbecue guys out there, all of the big names. For mine to come in the top 20, I was very proud of myself. It took me about 5 years to create, just to get the right flavor and just testing. But I'm being from New York. I work with a different palate. There's a lot of different ethnic backgrounds in New York. So I grew up with different Spanish cultures, Dominican, Puerto Rican, and then I had the West Indians as far as Jamaican, Trinidadian. So there's a lot of different spices that a lot of people wouldn't use in their rub, but I've learned to use it and work with it and get the right portion to where it's flavorful, and it's not the same as a Texas style barbecue or a Memphis style barbecue or a KC style barbecue. This is Phil the Grill's barbecue. This is my own freestyle barbecue. It's not named, it's my own invention, and this is what I like about it. You know what I mean? So it makes me feel proud that I created my own. One guy told me in the barbecue contest, if you want to win, you got to use a winning rub. I was like, how are you going to use somebody else's rub to win? Don't you want to create your own stuff? Don't you want to have, now you got to hope that this guy stays in business for you to grow and prosper. So I was right then at the bat. I was like, I'm going to create my own winning rub. And finally, I've got the allocate that I've done it, you know, and I was so proud this year. It has some savoriness, it has some sweetness, it has that smokiness. So before it even hits the smoker, you already have that smokiness going into that, you know. You have smoked salt, smoked paprika, so that's adding to that flavor. You know, some garlic, some sazon, things like that. But like, really look at how this rub is now sweating into the meat. It's almost getting a nice burgundy color, and that's when you know your rub is really penetrating into the meat. You know, we don't marinate anything here. This is his marinating process right now. When that rub is penetrating into that meat and just sweating into that meat, that's where your flavor is going to come from. Uh-oh, Ken folks in the house.
Best on the planet.
The best on the planet.
It don't get no better than that there, man. That's that real Trapp House stuff.
Yo, you got that burgundy, that mahogany.
Burgundy, mahogany. Sing it. Sing it.
Once that rub starts penetrating in, that's where I want it. You know, it's not falling off from when I first put it on, you know. This is it. Let's put that in the smoker. For the smoke that's coming out of there, I have cherry for color, I have maple for sweetness, and then the hickory is more of a pungent smoke that will give you that smoky flavor into your meat. So it's a science to it. It's not just throw wood in there and just put it in, because then it's gonna taste bitter and the flavor's not gonna last, you know. So you want everybody to be happy, you know. So I got that in the smoker. I'm gonna let that smoke for about 8 to 10 hours. Again, we're not baking a cake here, so we don't go off of time. It's all about looks and feel. You want it to like let the rub start that bark that you're looking for, almost to where you don't scratch off the rub. So you want to get it to where the rub really sets in. It really sets in that bark, and that's where your flavor is going to come from. And then we'll bring it out and put it in the hot box. Yep.